Hi everyone, my name is Tony Tan and welcome to the Tony Tan Show. Over the last couple of years, companies big and small have deployed hundreds of thousands of digital workers in the corporate environment. This technology is here to stay. Question is, will digital workers replace humans? Is it a zero-sum game? Or is it a case where digital workers can work with humans in a harmonious arrangement where they will optimize human performance and up their productivity levels? To help answer these questions and to gain some valuable insight, we would like to welcome our next guest, Serene Keng. She has spent the last 19 years of her career in security, storage, and fintech organizations. In her current role, she's Senior Director for Sales and Channels of Automation Anywhere, one of the leading robotic process automation organizations in the world today. Previously, Serene was the Channels Chief for Symantec for ASEAN. So let us welcome Serene Keng to the show. So Serene, thank you so much for joining us in the Tony Tan Show.
Thank you. Thanks, Tony.
Yes, I noticed that you have been speaking quite a bit, and I've noticed also the last show that you've done was the race against machines, if I'm not wrong.
Yes, it is.
Oh, and I thoroughly enjoyed it. I think you were in the company of professors and doctors, a very serious panel there in that session.
Developed a deep sense of inferiority complex during that one, but okay, we just try our best.
Yeah, but I did get some important tips in that presentation, and I think there's so much value that you are bringing to the audience with your conversations. And I also know that you are one of the most passionate person about digital adoption, and you eat, breathe, sleep digital technologies, right? And now in your present capacity, you have been sharing the benefits of software digital workers, or otherwise known as robotic process automation, with some of the most well-known corporations out there. Mm-hmm. So the last couple of years, I see that we have been adopting hundreds of thousands of these digital workers out there globally by all these MNCs. How is that adoption rate coming along? Do you see that this is going to accelerate in the near future?
Well, to be honest, right, robotic process automation, RPA, as many people know, is one of the fastest enterprise software segments in the market. One of the things that I do anecdotally see, right, in the market is that acceleration takes place, but at a very unequal pace. Mm. And part of it is also because I think that there's a general fear in the market. You know, like what, Tony, you mentioned earlier about the topic I spoke on, the race against the machine.
Right.
So I think to many people, they think that it is a race against, it's a human versus machine thing, which I think is one of the concepts that I would like to, have a discussion with you during this show about. Right. It's not really true, but there are many different nuances to how we peel the onion, so to say.
Right. Yeah. So there's all this perception about, is digital workers going to take over jobs, or who wins, digital workers or the human workers? Is it a zero-sum game? So there's a lot of this misconception out there. And of course, there's other schools of thought who think that this is actually the road to optimization, to bring out the best in humanities, right? So how do you see these two schools of thought? How do you see them playing out? Why are they one school of thoughts who thinks that, this is like the end of the world, right? Wow, digital workers are coming, my job is gone. And then the other side of them is like, well, this is a great thing, right? And, you take off some of these repetitive tasks that I have, and, I am now unburdened to be my best self, so that human race can go even further. It's so diverse, the opinions about this subject.
I think that, in our field, there's a very cool phrase that I would like to use. It's called, how do you take the robot out of the human? And I think that if you think about this, right, all the grunt work, the mundane, boring, the drudgery, the things that no matter what your name card says, there's going to be a segment of the things that you do that totally belongs to this category of boring, mundane, high volume, low value, that kind of things. And sometimes I think, oh, why can't I hire somebody to do that? But the world doesn't work like that. You can't hire people just to do a certain task by itself. So when you look at robotic process automation, to address that doomsday scenario first, right, when we talk about RPA, people tend to forget the part about process automation. They just hear the word robotic and they think that it's a Terminator, Skynet, end of days kind of scenario itself. And then they forget about, they let the science fiction portion totally overshadow, what it helps you with your daily task step by step along the way here first. Right. So I think the way that I would choose to look at it, and I think that with the work that we have done for the past couple of years with the company I work for, Automation Anywhere, product placement, okay, is that we can't automate everything and we shouldn't automate everything, which brings me to the word here that you mentioned, optimize. So when you optimize, is a different thing from automate, because when you optimize something, a scope, you can automate something. You can also choose not to automate something, and you should not automate something that is discretionary, takes human creativity, takes some decision makings that requires thinking hard about something that is not a binary yes or no, right?
So, if I'm hearing you in that sense, right, a lot of the current work that we are doing, I look at the tasks that we are doing, this repetitive task is actually, firstly, is boring.
Yes.
It's not really contributing to our growth, and because of that, it could be easily error-prone in that sense.
That's true. So error-prone, some of the benefits of RPA, robotic process automation, is that it's not just about saving the productivity hours. It's also about mistakes that are commonly made when you're tired, when you're not drinking enough coffee. Yeah. All right. Or when you have like a break in doing you break doing something. But these are mundane tasks. Like before you go to the toilet, you were doing that like 1 to 5 processes. Exactly the same way that after you come back from your coffee break, your toilet break, your smoking break and everything, and you are taking that same processes again, and then you get tired, and guess what happens? You put something in the wrong cell in your Excel file, you key in something. We have seen recent examples in the news with certain airlines, with certain banks, of how human errors cost a lot of money in terms of, mistakes caused by human errors. So not to say that, robot will save the world. They were not, because they are ultimately engineered and designed to help human, not to compete with human. You're right. Because I think when you look at the whole, genesis of this, right? Humans design systems, AI, robots, whatever mode that you call it, to help ourselves. I don't think anybody actually designed something with the intention of taking over us, taking over our scope, our work, the way our lives are done.
Yeah. I think this is very interesting because you look at the iRobot vacuum cleaners that we have at home, I think it's kind of like fit in the same story. Yeah. I don't want to go back sometimes after a long day and, start to vacuum my house. If there's a robot who can do this repetitive task, I could spend the time resting. I can use the time to do more presentation slides, value add to my life, even playing my dogs, right? Technology is here to augment us in that sense.
Actually, one thing you said very, very nicely, playing with my cats or dogs and everything, right? I don't want a robot to take over that part because I enjoy it. It makes me feel relaxed. It unleashes my creativities, like, teaching my cats how to beg for treats and all these kind of things, or maybe her teaching me how to give her treats. But the part that I don't like is vacuuming. By the way, when you mentioned iRobot, right, do you know that iRobot technology is also used to sweep for landmines in certain countries?
Oh, that's interesting.
Exactly, right. So I think the technology is out of the Pandora box. It's a matter of how you find the right use cases to exercise these different technologies itself.
And I think that's very important because right now, you see, I totally subscribe to your thoughts that adoption of technology is very different. For different countries, adoption is very different, right? And especially for those that are matured economies, countries like Singapore, where we are always looking to improve our productivity rates, and that's something that the government has been talking for a long time.
True. Yep.
Right. I think one of the areas that we have an opportunity to really improve the productivity rate, we talk about computerization in the past, but we are already fully computerized. So the next stage of improving productivity rate might come from digital workers and technologies like that to augment, humanity, right? so that we are able to be unleashed to go up the value chain and help companies or countries like Singapore to grow even further.
True. So if you look at the evolution of digitization in steps, right? The first step is computerization, getting the literacy level up to a certain extent, getting things to be that's on paper form into a digital format. Now, the second thing is now you've got lots of things in the digital format. What are you going to do with it? Do you have the processors in place to handle this data? Are these processors optimized to a way where you don't do more work than you necessarily need to? And then at the third stage, right, if they are structured enough and they have a workflow in place, can something do it rather than someone do this? And again, like what you mentioned, if you're able to find the right spots, the right gaps, and the right areas to automate those areas, right, then those are the places where you can get someone to divest from doing something like that and spend that time to do something else. And again, I'd like to maybe give you a customer anecdote here. Right. So I've got a client who's a university in Malaysia, and the CEO, she used to be the CFO, and she told me that she started the whole project because she was challenging her staff to go home earlier. So I think, during that time, I think 2 years back, they were going back at average like 9 p.m. every day, for her finance department. And I think that's quite unhealthy for lots of people. So a challenge is that how can you find a solution for yourself and your team to go home at 6 p.m. every day rather than 9 p.m. And actually, I really like her approach to doing things because first, it takes away the fear. It takes away a top-down approach to say, we are going to implement robots. It's going to take away that job scope of yours. Right. Live with it, right? But her approach is in such a way that you empower the team to find different sets of solutions to help yourself. So it could be robotic process automation. It could be low-code, no-code API. It could be a workflow. It could be nothing. It could be hire more people. But it's got to be looking at the problems you have, really applying your mind to this, falling in love in a way with the problem, and then find the right solutions to fit into that. And then as a third step, finding the right technologies that will, form part of the solution to solve that problem itself. So subsequently, of course, they use our solution, a robotic process automation, to automate the bank reconciliation. And while I don't think her team still goes back at 6 p.m., but she has told me that her team doesn't stay until 9 p.m. and they found other things to do with their time.
Yeah. And what's the interesting thing? In the last couple of years, in my experience with robotic process automation and digital workers, actually I've never come across a company that have said that they lost someone, a job replacement because they have these co-workers, these co-digital workers. I've not seen a single case like that. And I think that the market today, we're defining these digital workers as cobots, right? And why do we use the word cobots? Because it's a cooperative nature, right? By cooperating, we are going further together. So I think that naming convention is also starting to change as people are more enlightened to the capabilities and the limitations of technologies like that. So hopefully with this, people are more receptive and understand the benefits of technology like that. So from what I'm hearing, Serene, and from also some of my observations, technology like that are here to help us to progress further. And this technology is already here. It's here to stay, right? And it will accelerate in terms of adoption. So for some of our audience out there who are working in some of these organizations who have cobots or digital workers in the midst of their organization, what is your advice for some of these audience, right? What are some low-hanging fruits they can adopt to ensure that they work well with this class of technology?
I would say it starts with a mindset first. Nobody is asking you to embrace something that you're unfamiliar with, and it's totally human to be afraid of the unknown. But the mindset is the one that recognizes that the technology is out of the Pandora box. It is here. It is coming. But what are you going to do about it? So if I'm a manager or I'm a human manager, So let's say I've got 10 people in my team. Now, RPA is being implemented. It's going to take some of the mundane tasks off people's time. But the way to think about it is I'm going to return these hours back to my team. The question to them now is, instead of mulling and looking backwards that a robot is going to take away my job scope, which I've been complaining about all the while.
Yep,
okay?
Yep.
Right.
That's exactly the point.
Right. So now I've got 3 hours returned back to me
Right.
every week. What can I do with this additional 3 hours besides drinking coffee, of course? Right. What can I do with these 3 hours to bring value to my job? And I think that actually goes back to how, think back to your first job interview, right? When you first graduated from school, you're fresh, wow, you want to conquer the world, you want to do so many things.
Like a long time ago.
Okay. And I always think about this.
Right.
Somebody who, graduated from accountancy course, right? Did they ever think that they want to just do bookkeeping? Or, reconcile Excel spreadsheets, right? What we do in life as a subsequent, subsequency, right? Everybody ends up in different pathway. But aspiration is, I find very little people that I know that actually says, I have an accountant degree and I just want to reconcile spreadsheets. I have not met anybody who has said that to me, right? But the thing here is that when I return 3 hours back to somebody who has an accountant degree and who was spending time to reconcile spreadsheets after spreadsheets, right? I'm actually giving, not me, but the whole exercise here is actually returning the creative spark back to the person and asking the person, now you have 3 hours, what do you want to do? Some organizations like Google, they have Google X and all these things, right? They actually give time back to the employees to do moonshot projects, exercise their creativities, find the next the cancer cure, things that will save the world, change the world, and all these things, right? So what I see here is that having this technology out there is giving the power back to any organization, big or small, to empower their employees, their team, to have that precious time back to think about how they would like to add back to the organization and to themselves personally.
Serene, I picked up some very interesting things from you. First of all, you mentioned about acceptance, right?
Yes.
I think that's very important, right? You don't fight it. It's already here. Accept it so that you then free up your time to focus on what you need to do, rather fighting against the inevitable. That's the first step. You don't waste energy there. Yeah. Right? And the second thing that we are talking about is a growth mindset here, because at the end of the day, what we study and what is applied in society will change across the span of our lifetime, right? The only constant is change, right? And the only guarantee is a growth mindset. And actually, the thing that strikes me most about your conversation is the word value. There's so much talk about technology. There's so much talk about jobs, things like that. Every country, especially in today's recession, COVID-19 period. But people don't focus on value. At the end of the day, if you are providing a lot of value, you shouldn't worry about the job.
Yeah.
You shouldn't. Right? If your value is being negated or you're marginalized on your value, right? Then I think it's something that you really need to look at. And if you have a growth mindset, you shouldn't have that problem in the first place, because your value will continue to evolve and you need to go where the market needs you to be.
True. It's true.
If the market has moved on, you have to upgrade your value so that you constantly remain not just valuable, you might even thrive in the new economy or the new normal.
You think about the word inflation, right? So, long time ago, how people get around. They ride a horse to get from point A to point B. So there's a premium in being a horse rider because you can get from point A to point B faster. Then came along Henry Ford invented the automobile, right? So suddenly all the taxi drivers, and in those days, right, it would be the horse riders, right?
Right.
So, okay, my value is being negated because I don't know how to operate the gear of the automobile.
Right.
So the skill set they need to get now in order to continue their job is to learn how to drive a car.
Right.
to drive an automobile, not to ride a horse faster, right? So to keep up with the inflation of the value factor itself. So again, it goes down to a growth mindset. But growth mindset doesn't mean that it's a linear growth. It also means that opening the mindset to different varieties of skill sets and different roles that you need to pick up from, right? And I think that one pretty cool thing that our Singapore government is doing is that they have given lots of pathway, lots of fundings to, anybody who has an intention and a commitment and a growth mindset to want to learn, to be able to learn.
Yes.
Yeah.
Serene, I want to stress this point. Let's not talk even about the internet age. Let's go a bit backwards, right? Can you imagine a time before electricity? All those palaces, our house are candle powered. How big is this candle making industry those days? It must be big. How many servants you have to maintain? How much time you have to maintain just to ensure that you change candles every day? Not to mention the risk of fires, which is so common during those days. It must be thousands and thousands of people just in the candle making industry. And that in those days, you tell people about electricity, they'll say, wow, this is a big threat to my job, right? But can you imagine when electricity comes, the risk of catching fire is much lower, that's one. But who will know that we have power generators, we have all these new companies like Sony, Kenwood, there is MNCs that's created out of electricity, appliances that support electricity, and the face of Earth change, the nature of job change, and human society progress so much faster as a result. And this becomes a force multiplier.
It is.
Right?
Yeah, so, the key word that I keep thinking about when you describe this, right, is the word ecosystem. Because as one industry sunsets, which is in this analogy, the candle making industry sunsets, a new one is created. And the new multiplier, right, could be a skilled out ecosystem, right? So, and it creates jobs that they were not there before and has not been defined in before. So when I first joined the RPA industry, right, I saw in LinkedIn that, job scopes that I've never even heard of or even dreamt of before and all these things. And when I look around, right, one of the things that I do see is that as a manager, there are scopes that where you are not just managing people, but you're also managing bots in your team as well. Because I think what I see is that in enterprises, increasingly what people are measuring are definite hard outcomes. An outcome can be delivered by a bot, can be delivered by a human, can be delivered by a human who's managing a group of bots, could be, and the skill goes on and everything, but it is an outcome, right? So for any enterprises that's thinking of increasing their productivity with a set number of humans, right, there are only that number of people that you can hire to do that same boring job over and over again. And for the education systems that's like generating people with different mindsets and everything, it's going to be difficult, even in the pandemic situation, to find people who will be content, satisfied to stay a long while in a job that doesn't bring ultimate value and ultimate, job satisfaction to the moral code itself, right?
I also like to point out that, a lot of these repetitive jobs, you find that the most turnovers, company turnovers, generally are from jobs like that. So the companies are suffering because they have to think of how to reduce this turnover. And people are not getting satisfaction in the job. That's why the turnover in the first place. So we are in a vicious cycle. We really need a new paradigm shift to move out from this thing. It's like a trap, right? So from a individual and from a company, it's imperative that we automate some of this mundane stuff so that we all free up to do more. So in vein of that conversation, Serene, I'm sure a lot of companies today are also looking to see how they can augment their human workforce with a digital workforce. What would your advice be for companies who are looking to create a good hybrid model where both that workforce can be working effectively to bring the productivity up for organizations?
Okay, interesting question. And there's no one-size-fits-all kind of scenario. So with some of our customers, right, they set up this thing called a center of excellence. But nice concept, but not. It depends on the maturity and the mindset of the company. So to start off first with, right, there has to be a top-down approach because there's so much dissension, with a experimental concept like, introducing robots into a traditional workforce, right? You do need to have a top-down mandate to do so. But top-down mandate itself, right, is not saying that, okay, we're going to change the ERP system, everybody live it, suck it in and just do it. It's not like that. Because the nature of a digital workforce is cobots working with you side by side. You have to accept this, because if you don't, if the ground folks don't accept this, right, there's no ground support, projects will fail, regardless of top-down mandates itself. So it's got to be a combination of a top-down mandate and making sure that there's constant communication, constant setting of what the success looks like, in what time frame, in 3 months' time, how many people's, hours are freed up to do something and do what. So in concurrency, right, there needs to be a change management program that is going on in the first place. And I think that one of the things that I may want to highlight here is the topic of accountability. So RPA, intelligent automation, this is not typically one of those backroom projects. It's not you switch it on and everything runs like a steam engine. Perfect, right? It's not that. It is something that needs to be well-tuned all the time. You got to watch it. It's like you're astronauts in a tin can, but you got to monitor yourself, the tin can, the rocket and everything. You got to keep tuning it, and you got to keep calibrating it, and you got to keep figuring out what doesn't work and what works, and you got to keep getting the buy-in from all the different stakeholders whose nature and profile keeps changing itself. So it really is a full-time job. So I think accountability doesn't belong to a part-time role itself. So which brings me to the maturity of the organization, as I mentioned earlier. When an enterprise is at that stage where they recognize that, this is going on, and typically it's a bit chaotic at a point in time, it is time to put in a center of excellence. Small, key, fundamental group of people with the support of the C-suite. And it's not just for show. They do have to embrace, and they do need to truly believe that, the DNA of the company needs to break a little bit or to be crisped in something to change the nature of the, of the way business is done by itself. And these people need to be empowered to not just to coordinate activities, but to have a really deep look and access into various processes, systems, portions, parts, people, all these things, and to be able to, empowered to make that changes into how you break certain things and put certain things and automate certain things and keep certain, it is an engine, it is a complex engine by itself.
Yeah, I get it, right. So again, I think the three areas that you're talking about, firstly is of course top-down management support. Nothing happens without management support.
You know that you're the boss.
Yeah, I think it's absolutely key, management buy-in. And center of excellence is so important, but I felt it's something that not many organizations are getting it right or execute it well. But center of excellence is like a turbocharger in a car, if you want to, right? Because they are the ones that will compile use cases, they are the ones that will share the success stories, they are the ones that sell to the various stakeholders and the various business units within the team to get buy-in. And buy-in is so important. Without a proper buy-in, without looking at success, it's very hard to get that momentum going. So I totally agree that center of excellence is so critical. You don't need a big center of excellence, but still, some important stakeholders are there. It's important. It is something like a glorified steering committee, but it does a lot more than that, right? And you talk about accountability, about making sure that we are accountable to the success. I think that is also very important, because ultimately we are all KPI driven. We need to accountable for how successful is this technology is being rolled out. And there's a little thing about empathy here, which I will share. We will talk a little bit further down the road about one of the topics that I will come back to this word called empathy. But I hear you, right? So I think this is important, because I do concur that in some of these implementations, these are some of the things that's lacking, and because of that, the friction gets higher. Yeah. The higher the friction, the experience will be distorted in the implementation like that, and the end results are not often optimal. And Serene, from just being implementation of automation that we have discussed earlier around robotic process automation, we are also beginning to see artificial intelligence coming into the realm of digital workers. and more and more of this technology will be AI powered or machine learning powered. How do you see artificial intelligence taking place in our society? And do you think, there's again, artificial intelligence is a very divisive topic, right? We have one camp that have very famous people from Elon Musk down that says that, wow, this is an evil tech, right? Yeah, one day this thing is going to take over humanity. And then we have another school of thought that say, look, guys, AI is AI, right? But at the end of the day, if we are able to use it wisely, the world will change for the better. Again, two separate camps, right? Again, very divisive topic. How do you see this AI thing playing out, in our society?
Okay, in my view, right, robotic process automation, the platform, it is doing things. It's doing things. You don't need to think, just doing. Now, when you add that spark of AI into this, right, it's basically looking at a document. How do you do that? As a human, you look at a document. You look at it with your eyes. You translate that information and put it into a context with your brain. And then you act on that based on your contexture and understanding of what you need to do and where that data fits into it. Okay. So now, take the human out and put the robot in. What does it do? You're asking the robot to think. Right, to think. And thinking here means making inferences with data sets that's already there, right? So the machine, the bot will start thinking, will start learning. So the more it does, it's like a human, the more experience you accumulate, you make better judgments. Now, translate that to a bot. The more data sets it ingests, the smarter the bot will become. So what does the bot do? The bot thinks. So it takes unstructured or semi-structured data from a document. It uses NLP, computer vision, machine learning, everything, right? OCR. And it takes that, it translates that into a structured data, into cells, into columns, into fields, and rows, columns, and everything. So once you have that data in a structured format, this is a gold mine. And then you can push it down into RPA for it to continue its task and everything. It is a workflow. It is a flows by itself. And the more that you can do that, well, I think you're taking out the exceptions and you're standardizing things that actually can be standardized. And that's how you make your work life a little bit better from this sense. Now, that one is on the, the rather boring side about it. Now, for AI itself, right, I mean, I hear what you say about, Elon Musk himself recently put a chip on a pig, right? I read it in the Twitter. I think that it is divisive in a way. But again, I don't know whether I would classify myself as a tech optimist or pessimist. But I do know that tech is actually agnostic, is neutral. And it amplifies the human intentions, right? So amplifies meaning that what we want to do with tech is up to us. The tech just follows. So if you're out to do bad things with technology, the tech becomes really bad. Now, if you've watched Netflix Black Mirror, yes. You know what I'm talking about.
Yes.
So with cool technologies, with awesome technologies, right, the world can be a very good place or a total dystopia, depending on which divergent pathway, it is being used for itself.
Yeah, Serene, I think that's very deep. I think that looking at AI as a tool, it's an important distinguish. It does distinguish it in an important way. Ultimately, what we human create are tools that serve us, right? It serve us for the better over the years. But any tool that we have designed, whether it's a Stone Age spear tip to hunt mammoths for meat, right? We use it to kill humans as well, right?
Yeah, true. Yeah.
Right. We invented fire so that we can have control over the food that we eat and to some extent control temperature. But we use fire to burn people, to put on arrows and shoot into castles and whatnot. Every technology that we have invented to date in the history of humanity there's dual use for it, for good, for bad. Yeah. And ultimately, it's the intention behind it and how we use technology, right? I guess that's the duality of it. And I think the human mind, and you speak it so, in a way that is so powerful. You say that technology amplifies the human mind, and it is, right? Technology is a powerful tool if you use it well, but you use it, you use it badly. Let's say nuclear power, right? You use it well, it generates power for so many people. It improves our quality of life, and it contributes to the reduction of carbon in climate change. But you use it for destructive manners, and we can wipe out the human race. It's the same for AI. All right, and I think that at the end of the day, instead of just asking ourselves whether it's AI good or bad, I think we should ask ourselves, what are we doing as human race? How are we using technology, right? Are we using technology to improve ourselves, to make this world a better place, or we are using technology to destroy the world? I think, and then this comes down to the mental state that we are in, or I sometimes call it the wisdom of using this technology, the intentions of how we use this technology, our social, our moral bearings of using these technologies. If we get that right, and if we manage to understand and adopt a set of moral values, ethics, as well as wisdom to use this, then I think AI generally will be for the common good of humanity.
I think that's why, right, as technology advances in not just leaps and bounds, but in unbelievable speed, right? I mean, when people, I've talked to quite a fair bit of, technology leaders and everything. One common question that's always being posited is that if you have a kid, what language, what programming language, what would you want your kid to be educated in, right? And increasingly, you find that, many top thinkers are going to say, learn the skills of empathy, the soft skills, creativity, philosophy, thinking, critical thinking. Now, I think being a product of our education system in Singapore, right, last time maybe I would go, just go and get a proper, a skill that makes sure that you got an iron rice bowl and everything, right? But having been in technology for the past 20 years, right, I realized that the more that I know, the less that I actually know, the less I am certain of things. Because first, technologies move so fast, and again, not in a linear fashion, all over the place. You don't know what is going to be valuable and what's not going to be valuable in the next split second. You don't know whether something that has been done efficiently before is now going to be replaced by a technology that totally eradicates the need for something to be done efficiently. Right. So I do, at the end of the day, think that the important skill sets to acquire growing up and learn and working and through life, actually, right, is an open mindset. And it really is easier said than done. So for me, on weekends, right, we're just chatting about what I do on weekends besides work, right? The way I look at it, right, I'm trying to pick up Python. And if I were to learn it in a way that, let's say, create the next script, add numbers and all these kind of things, right, it's going to be very boring. So to have an open mindset means that I have to find something that I like first. So maybe, I would like to see how COVID is trending in my neighborhood and everything. So perhaps I could write a script that actually, shows some very cool, interesting results, which I can show off to my friends. Right. Something like that. And then you work backwards to find the skill sets that actually help you to achieve the aim that you want. So it's a mindset that you probably need to... The mindset is the greatest thing that anybody needs to work on before you get into any skill sets itself.
Yeah, I think that's really, the gist of everything.
It is.
And also, come to mindset, also limiting beliefs, right? Sometimes we give ourselves limiting beliefs and tell ourselves, I can't change. I cannot adopt to this world of digital technologies. But who says you can't? At the end of the day, you tell yourself what you want to hear.
As a salesperson, right, sometimes, right, I hear myself, or, let's say, actually, I'm not technical, but, I'm not and people say that to get out of conversations that, that becomes really very technical and Greek-like in a certain way. But at the end of the day, if you look at the technologies that we are putting into place, right, it's not tech, it's digital. And digital is not just the domain of, the technology department itself. It's everybody. It has to make logic sense. It has to make sense to the person using this before you find the right, algorithm to support that kind of thing. So I always don't subscribe to, I'm not technical, I'm not going to be talking about that. You really have to understand what is the problem that you're trying to solve. Is your solution the right solution that actually solves this? And if you have the solution, does it solve everything?
Yeah.
Do you need to solve everything?
Yeah.
Do you want to limit to something, show success? And technology evolves so fast, maybe by the time that you reach to the second phase, right, what you don't have, you already have it,
Yeah.
right? It's all about evolution.
I heard even our prime ministers learns programming skills.
Yeah, R.
Nothing stops
Yeah.
a person
Yeah.
from wanting to change, except yourself. I think that's an important message we need to share with our audience today as well. In the age of AI, where automation and artificial intelligence is gaining momentum, I believe that there are also some human traits that AI will never be able to replace, And these are things that really what make us humans and what make us unique. So you mentioned a couple of things just now. You talk about critical thinking, you talk about growth mindset. And I would like to add on to that as well. And the other thing that's almost impossible at this point of time, and at least for the near future for AI to replicate, is in terms of creativity. They can say that, in the arts, AI has written a book recently, right? And stuff like that. But at the end of the day, creativity is what distinguishes us from what AI can do, right? And creativity is something that comes from correlations of multiple types of knowledge that you have. You bring different discipline and different knowledge, and it jumbles together, and suddenly you have this idea, right? And you look at today's AI, most of that is narrow, meaning to say that they only can do one thing very well. So for them to generate across different class of knowledge and comes out a whole new solution, a whole new way of doing things, is almost impossible. The creative AI that we are talking about is still like if you give them one piece of book, right, and then they digest this book and a couple of these books at the same time, and they mumbo jumbo and they come out something and say, oh, this is very interesting. But that's still very narrow, right? Yeah. That is not the kind of creativity that we're talking about. We humans can understand and perceive creativity at a very rapid rate that no other technology can do today. And we can come up with solutions that no AI can replicate. So the ability to develop critical thinking, processing, become a generalist, and to understand how to apply this creativity is something that I feel is important to the human race. And we have to continue to develop that while we allow AI to do what they are good in, right?
True. So I think that the strength of a human brain is to solve problems, right? Solving problems means that you have already met with an exception scenario, and which is not governed by any processes and everything. I think in business we always have a saying that says that the processes will take care of only 60% of the thing, but we are still running a business at the end of the day. So this is whenever somebody tries to hide behind processes, we'll say that, right?
Right.
I think that the human, the part where we exercise, problem solving, empathy, and all this, right? I don't know whether today there's enough technology, horsepower out there that is able to come to conclusions that does not match the original premises being set up. Because if you have an algorithm, right, it's always if A equals to B, B equals to C, does A equals to C. I mean, it sets out fundamental tenets of logical thinking like that. But with AI, obviously, they are able to make inferences from your data sets at the end of the day. But human thinking sometimes go beyond the logic, right? And I don't know how to describe that. I guess that not having the words to meaningfully describe that means that it is an emotive kind of thing. You feel things. I don't really think that you can say the machine feels something today, okay? But not yet. Not yet or never. I'm not sure which is the pathway for that. But at least in a snapshot today, right, a human feels things. A human has empathy for other humans, right? Ultimately, at the end of the day, human beings are at the center tenet of this all. We build tools to serve us. We don't build tools so that the tools will one day be our master.
And I like this so much. So you look at photography today, right? We look at Adobe and everything. They are all AI powered, right? You can stitch pictures together. You can manipulate pictures. You got very powerful cameras today, powerful sensors, and they have AI to build in to do anti-shaking to get that perfect picture. But how do you create an emotional picture that speaks to your soul?
Yeah, I saw one article that day. They got this AI to create an oil painting, and Sotheby sold it for, I can't remember how much, but it was for a fair sum of money. And the painting looks a little bit gibberish to me, and I don't know, maybe because I knew that it was done by AI, by a non-human, it didn't speak to me at all. But at the same time, if you hear music that's actually written by algorithm, or movies, and there's plenty, I think a few of them in Netflix, right? It's actually generated by by machines, right? Somehow there's a spark that's missing. And again, because I have no words to describe that, right? I just want to put it in the area of feelings.
Yeah, the X factor. The X factor is not there. Yeah, I totally agree with you. So, Serene, now that we see, that it's not just AI, right? We are seeing
or maybe just give you an example.
Yeah.
Sorry. Why do certain songs move us?
It speaks to our heart.
Yeah, it reminds you of a time in your life when you experience something.
Yeah.
Now, the words I use, right, it reminds, experience, speaks to you, evocative,
Yes.
right?
Yes.
So these are very high level words compared to what, machines can do today.
Right.
You compare, you
Right.
reconcile, you add, you subtract, you low-level verbs. Those are doing things at that thing. It helps us. There are pillars that help us to do things, so we free up our time so that we can feel more things.
Right.
Right?
Yes. I've not heard of an AI-generated song yet today.
Actually, no. I guess the scenario would be, can a machine feel touched by a song?
Oh, that's the line between us and machines, Serene.
Yeah.
And I think that's what we are coming to in the entire podcast, right?
Oh.
And this show. I mean, there's two distinct differences that people need to know, and we have just deconstruct some of them. But coming back to this huge tsunami of changes that's coming our way, we just talk about AI, and it's a conversation can go forever. But AI is just one facade of multiple techs that's happening, multiple digital innovations that's happening. We're talking about 5G, we're talking about augmented reality, we're talking about orbital satellites, we're talking about nanotechs, we're talking about quantum computing, just to name a few, right? Now, so the thing is that in today's context, with all this technology coming out, the leadership, the way that we leaders, how we structure and how we think, and are we ready for this influx of digital technology? And some people are calling and questioning this. They're calling this the future of leadership or digital leadership. What some new skill sets that leaders have to adopt, have to think about, have to equip themselves so that they're able to lead their organizations to even greater heights and make full use of this technology to grow to the next stage. Where do you think some of these new leadership skills are coming from? Or what are some of the recommended skills that you have seen it is critical to leaders today?
I think a couple of things. After intellectually you have reconciled that you need to change, you need to be courageous enough to break the DNA of the company, the enterprise, the group, the team that you're leading, to be able to move to the next step. So what I mean by that is that, if you watch those, or you talk to a lot of people, right, especially family business, they will say, but this is the way that it has been done so far, right?
Yes.
And then you see the generational differences in how businesses are being run or done and everything. And maybe the generation who founded the business would think that, you don't try to change too many things at one time. It has been working like this. Let's not overly tweak the formula and
Don't
everything.
change the winning formula.
Right? Don't change the winning formula. Now, there's no one size fits all again. It is true for certain things like food and all this kind of thing. I do believe in that. But there's certain ways of, reaching out to customers and all these things that definitely needs to be changed. And it has not been put into clearer perspective than the recent COVID situations where you see lots of F&Bs either going out of business or doing even better than before. Because of the way that they have made certain changes or being able to adapt to the situation needs and everything here first. So the mindset of the leader, right, is not just to digitize for the sake of digitization or for the sake that everybody else is doing this. I think fundamentally it is to really understand the nature of the business, and really dissect that to a point, you don't need to take a big bang approach, right? When I said break the code, change the DNA, it doesn't mean that you need to, change from a monkey to a fish or vice versa, that sort of things, right?
Yeah.
But it is really to have a headline goal. Where do you see your business going in the next 1 year, 3 years? I want to say the proverbial 5 years, but I think 5 years is too far ahead for anybody to really know where we are going. And from that, work many different scenario backwards. We will never get it right. We can plan for all we want. We may not, end up in any of these scenarios. But what is important is that when you work backwards, right, you can see, okay, have I come to a intellectual conclusion that I want to be in this place in 3 years' time? Now, do I have the courage and the authority to lead the team across all the different naysayers to cross this together, knowing that there will be challenges and difficulties ahead? There will be people who don't want to change because it's easier to defend institutions that has already been established than make a case for big changes because of fear of uncertainty, right? To cross that multiple times with that persistence and that resiliencies. So you do need to have intellectual, you do need to have that vision, you do need to have that, that courage to make that change, and you do need to have the resiliency to counter the many challenges that will come your way. So these are the three things. Yeah.
And when you say about that vision, I think another word that a lot of people also use very close to that is clarity, especially in today's world, right? There's so much white noise that's going on. To have that clarity is important to, I think, crystallize, right? And to get your people to really follow in line and move ahead. And we also talked a little bit about, earlier on, I talk about empathy, right? Today we are breaking processes, we are breaking down the silos, we are agents of change, and technology adoption. And some people are saying that, look, in today's digital leadership, empathy is really an important skill, right? And we define empathy as like caring while doing, right? What are your thoughts about empathy in today's leadership in implementing some of these difficult or fast-moving changes?
I think empathy has to become from a natural place. You can't fake empathy. Okay. Because I again, here's the thing. It's not something that is follow the recipe and you get empathy. It just doesn't work like that. I don't know what more I can say about empathy itself. It's just something that some people naturally have it. Some people have to work a little bit harder. But again, I don't think there's a playbook. Empathy to me is just putting myself in, the person I'm talking to, the scenario. And the emotions that I feel if I'm sitting at the other side of the table, right? And how can I help this person who's sitting over there? I mean, and to put a very painful topic out on the table, right? Recently, because again of COVID, there's lots of retrenchments going on. And, many companies, many people I know are going through retrenchments and things like that. And when somebody says, I feel for them, right? That's an empathy statement. And what subsequent actions that come out from that statement, right, will be something that comes out from understanding the person in that situation and what you can as a friend, as a mentor, as a boss, as a friend do to help them to get through this. So that is empathy. Now relating this back to job scopes and everything, I'm in sales. There's a fair bit of what I do that's in sales operations, creating reports, forecasts and things like that. Now if I have a bot that helps me, give me back the time that it takes to do that, right? I tell you, I'll be very happy, right? I wouldn't see it as something that takes away my job. Please take that scope away. I would love it, right? Yeah. So I can take time to focus on, other things like how can I create more pipeline? How can I talk to more partners, customers, and how can I, find different ways to, look at their problems, understand it a little bit more in depth, and spend time really thinking about things before coming up with an action for that. So you can see that having automation, having things in place, right, it takes away the things that I honestly don't want to do, and it gives me back that time to empathize with my customers about the pain that they are feeling so that I can craft a better solution for them at the end of the day.
Oh, Serene, I would like to congratulate you. I think that you are.
Did I say something? Okay.
I can see that you are a very big supporter of robotic process automation, but of course you tie it up very well, right? We are taking away the mundane job so you can be a better leader by empathizing with both your customers' pain point or even your staff pain point so that you can bring the results even further. If you have just came one full round, Serene, congratulations.
Oh, okay. But one thing I would like to say about this, right? Again, it is not a backroom project. It's not just something that you switch it on and you can go party and all these kind of things. Also, you need to make it secure as well. A smart nation is not a smart nation until it's a secure nation.
Yeah.
The same goes for systems, machines, whatever that you do, right?
So cybersecurity is a big thing. So I think that in whatever that we design in this digital age, every piece of design has to incorporate security thought process inside it, right?
Again, like, we always say automation first, and it's also security first as well. Both, when you think about this, right, they are both flip sides of the same coin,
Yes.
right? Whatever that's convenient, you always contravene, is it secure?
Yeah.
Right?
Yes.
Because if you think, hey, I've got to have my two-factor authentication, all these kind of things, right? So mafan.
Yes.
Why? Right? But it's secure. Would you rather it not be secure? Can you live with that? So it's always a tussle between friction and convenience. So automation and security, it's got to come hand in hand.
And what are your thoughts about today being a digital leadership and with the rise of social media? How important is it about personal branding for leaders today? And do you think communication skills in this digital age is paramount?
Perception is reality. No matter how well your intentions are, if it is wrongly perceived by people, that's the reality. So absolutely, communication is important.
Yeah, I think so too. But what are your thoughts about, do you think digital leaders need to up their presentation skills in virtual presentation, especially today it's all about Zoom? And also, how about their personal profile? Because there's something called a profile economy, right? Where it's no longer just about your company brand, but the brand of the leaders. Because ultimately, if you look at statistics in the last couple of years, people follow people don't follow brands. What's your thoughts about personal branding and leadership?
Very important. So, I think I'm willing to say that I haven't checked it, but I'm pretty certain that more people follow Elon Musk than people following Tesla itself.
Yes.
Because you want to hear what another individual is saying. But when you're following a company, it's already filtered down. It's already watered down. It's already been, sanitized and all these kind of things. You're not getting very exciting, tip of the spear kind of, thought processes itself. Companies don't have thought processes. They have a sanctioned, public ready speeches and everything. But individuals have thought processes. So I think that, people following Satya Nadella, Elon Musk, and so on and so forth, the great leaders of our times, right? I mean, Bill Gates, right? We follow them because we are interested in the way they think, in the way they see the world going into, the emerging technologies, how the world's going to be looking like, what's the next step for kids in the future, and things like that. So, would you think a company would be able to say that?
Yeah. And company, at the end of the day, storytelling is really a lot about the person itself. It's about human-to-human connections. And if you are a personal leader, you're able to be vulnerable. You're able to tell personal stories to connect better. It's a lot harder. It's not impossible. It's a lot harder and a lot colder if you connect with the company. And I think that is also another thing that, a very interesting point about the future of digital leadership, about leaders putting themselves forward instead of just, hiding behind the brand itself, so that, again, they're able to bring their organization to the next step.
True, absolutely.
So, Serene, you have been a leader for so many years, right? Is there a statement or a line that you subscribe to that that guides you both as a leader or as a person that that you feel very close with?
For me, right, I see leadership as a role where I always tell my teams this. The plane is about to take off, right? You're the plane that's about to take off. You're the pilot of that plane is going to take off. I'm just the person that's clearing the tin can from the runway so that you can take off successfully. I believe in empowering people so that they can do their best.
So, in your time, you are a senior director of automation anywhere. It's very senior sounding to me. You didn't come to this overnight, of course. I mean, you went through quite a lot of up and downs in your careers, and also I think in life we all go through challenges. Was there a time in your life that you have gone through a serious crisis or serious challenge, and how do you feel about it, and how you overcome such challenges?
I don't really have a very tragic overture, so we don't have those like sad music in the playground for that. But what I do think, right, is that decisions that we make in work, in life, right. For me, I've always gone with is the technology something that can change something in the world? Okay, I started off selling ATMs, right? And I didn't see myself selling ATMs. I saw myself helping the unbanked get banked in developing countries. So I was looking after countries like Nepal, Sri Lanka, Cambodia, so on and so forth, right? And I see myself being advocate for, bringing financial services to the unbanked and underbanked, right? And so I believe that selling ATMs did change the world in a very different way, I guess. Now, and that has always guided me in the decisions of, what technologies I go into, what companies I sell my skills to, and all these things here first. But as I grow older, right, one of the things that I do realize, right, I need to calibrate that also with the people I work with. The culture of a company is really important as well, because I think, along in life, right, you got to learn what you don't like and what you like. Is as important, both sides of this coin itself. So it's not just about the technologies, it's about the people, the culture, the fit. Do you want to go to work happy, or do you stress about it every day? But the technology is great and all these things here first. So there isn't a giant big four in life, like make a majorly wrong decisions, but it's a series of learning experiences that you pick up and you become ingrained with you along the way that makes you make better decisions and hopefully become a better human being.
So go with the punches, go with the flow.
Roll with the punches, yeah, exactly, right. Yeah.
Fall down, stand up, walk again.
Yeah, whine a bit, have a group of friends. Yeah, having friends is very important.
Proximity, right? You are the result of the people that you mix with.
Oh, totally, yes, yeah. But with social distancing, of course.
Yes, of course. We always must be very mindful about our health.
Yes, definitely.
So, sorry, my last question for you, and ironically, it's tied back to COVID-19, right?
Okay.
So, with this COVID-19, for the last couple of months, we have been locked down. A lot of people it's a lot of doom and gloom for a lot of people.
Yes.
And I always believe that no matter how bad things are, there's always something good at the end of the tunnel, right? What was that light for you at the end of the tunnel? What was that something good that happened for you during this period of COVID?
A lot of people would say that, they discovered that they actually like baking, they actually like staying at home and everything. And more people discovered they are actually closet introverts rather than extroverts. I think for me, right, it's the opposite. I discovered that actually I'm an extrovert. Okay. So I like to go to office. Is that wrong to say that? Maybe it is, but let's not get that out of the face. Okay. Yeah. Okay.
That's a good thing to be committed to your work. That's very professional.
It's not that. I mean, it makes me realize that there's a lot of merit in just talking to another human being. There's this phrase called cabin fever, right? Cabin fever is when you're stuck in an enclosed space and you only have you yourself to talk to and all these things. So for me, I realized that I just like to talk to people. And even when me and my colleagues or friends are not just talking about anything with a set, like we have an hour to discuss a certain agenda, when we talk through things, when we whine through certain things, right, we actually can come up with something that, is unintended, but an outcome, a solution, a breakthrough. And that's how I think humans interact with each other. So for me, besides getting a cat during COVID period, the thing that I learned most is that I truly value, the human-to-human interpersonal relationships and communicating with people.
Wow. And then that's another pointer for us today. That's something that AI will never be able to replicate.
Absolutely, yeah.
Thank you very much, Serene. Thank you for joining us today on the Tony Tan Show. And you have given us so much insights and given us so much of your time. But I would say that you have given us so many facades from how an individual should adopt and think about how to work with digital workers, to what companies need to think about to adopt digital technology, to give us a bearing of where AI is heading, to what does the future of digital leadership look like. And we really appreciate your time. And thank you so much once again for joining us today and to share these valuable insights with us. And we hope to catch up with you somewhere downstream so that we can again share some ideas together.
Pleasure's all mine, Tony. Thank you. Yeah.
Take care, Serene.
Thanks.
Hi, everyone. Thank you for watching the Tony Tan Show. I hope that you find the content valuable. If you want to know more about our next shows and podcasts, do remember to subscribe to our channel and give a thumbs up so that we are encouraged to do more for you. My name is Tony Tan, and I'm bringing the future into the present. I look forward to see you in our next show and podcast soon. Goodbye.